Is Manchester United a graveyard for players? Over £1 billion spent in the last decade, and not one signing is performing better now than when they arrived. Think about this. Marcus Rashford was banging in 30 goals a season. Now he's on loan at Barcelona because United gave up on him. Alejandro Garnacho scored the FA Cup winner against City. United sold him to Chelsea. But here's the kicker. The players who supposedly weren't good enough, they're thriving elsewhere. Anthony Elanga is bossing it at Newcastle. James Garner runs the show at Everton. This pattern is brutal. United has everything, but somehow it's become the place where careers go to die. So, what's really happening behind those famous red doors? Can anyone survive what Old Trafford has become? Manchester United should be the perfect place for any footballer. They've got the biggest commercial deals in the sport, the most iconic stadium, and a history that most clubs can only dream of. Everything about this club screams success. Yet, somehow, players keep failing there. So, are we looking at individual failures, or is there something fundamentally toxic about the Old Trafford environment that's systematically destroying careers? If it's the latter, then we're talking about one of the most damaging institutions in modern football. The evidence suggests it might be exactly that, and honestly, it's pretty terrifying. But to understand just how deep this problem goes, we need to look at some of the biggest names who've walked through these doors. Let's start with Marcus Rashford, because this one genuinely hurts. This is United's own flesh and blood, a kid who came through their academy and was supposed to be the face of the club for the next decade. In 2022-23, he was absolutely flying, 30 goals across all competitions, looking like one of the most dangerous forwards in Europe. United fans genuinely thought they'd found their new superstar. 18 months later, his form had collapsed so dramatically that the club shipped him off to Barcelona on loan. Their academy prince, their poster boy, their supposed future, gone because they couldn't figure out how to keep him at his best. Then there's Alejandro Garnacho, and this one really stings. This kid was box office, scored the winner against City in the FA Cup final, produced the bicycle kick that had the whole world talking, and looked like he was born to play for United. At 20 years old, most clubs would be building their team around talent that is promising. Instead, United sold him to Chelsea for £40 million before he'd even turned 22. When you're selling your most promising academy talent at 21, that's not smart business. That's admitting you can't develop your own players. Furthermore, Paul Pogba is your perfect case study for the graveyard effect. United paid £89 million to bring him back, built their entire midfield around him, and made him the centerpiece of their rebuild. 6 years later, he left on a free transfer with his reputation absolutely destroyed. The same player who'd been world-class at Juventus looked lost and confused at Old Trafford. And Ángel Di María, fresh off helping Real Madrid win the Champions League. He arrives at United as one of the best wingers on the planet. 12 months later, he's calling it the worst experience of his career and desperately trying to escape. The moment he reached PSG, he was world-class again. But here's what might be even more damaging than these high-profile failures. What's happening to the kids who should know the club better than anyone? If expensive signings struggling was United's only problem, you might argue they're just bad at recruitment. However, when your own academy products are fleeing and immediately looking better elsewhere, that completely exposes how broken the development pathway is at Old Trafford. Take Anthony Elanga, for instance. At United, he looked like just another academy kid who couldn't quite make the step up. They sold him to Nottingham Forest in 2023. And suddenly, he's producing double-digit goals and assists. Now he's at Newcastle looking every bit a proper Premier League player. The same kid who is barely getting games at United is thriving in the top flight. Similarly, James Garner spent years in United's system, got a handful of chances, then was sold to Everton, where he immediately became a Premier League regular. Angel Gomez left the academy completely and reinvented himself as a promising playmaker at Lille. When multiple academy graduates have to leave your club to fulfill their potential, that's not bad luck, that's systematic failure. And it raises a really uncomfortable question. If United can't even develop their own talent properly, what hope do expensive signings have? But here's where it gets really dark, the reasons behind this destruction. So, what exactly is destroying these careers? First, the winning culture that used to define this club has completely disappeared. Under Ferguson, United had clear standards, defined expectations, and players knew exactly what was required of them. That DNA is gone. Instead of Ferguson-era discipline, players walk into tactical confusion, constantly changing systems, and a club having a genuine identity crisis. How can players develop when the club itself doesn't know what it wants to be? Additionally, there's the Glazer effect, which runs deeper than most people realize. The ownership has treated United as a business first and a football club second. Recruitment has been a scattergun, sporting structure constantly changing, with no clear vision beyond signing big names and hoping for magic. But here's what people don't discuss enough. The social media pressure is absolutely killing these young players. Rashford and Garnacho became global brands before they've established themselves as consistent performers. Massive wages, millions of followers, commercial deals worth fortunes. When you're already living as a superstar, where's the hunger to actually become one? Not only that, tactical instability makes everything worse. 6 different managers since Ferguson, each with completely different philosophies. Players get bought for one system, then have to adapt to 3 more before they're sold because they don't fit the latest vision. Yet there's one group that claims they can fix all of this. But are they the solution or just another part of the problem? INEOS arrived promising to fix everything wrong with United for the past decade. They've installed Omar Barada as CEO, Jason Wilcox as technical director, and they're building a proper footballing structure for the first time since Ferguson left. Nevertheless, their early moves raise serious questions. They've been ruthless in clearing out players who don't meet their standards. The Rashford loan to Barcelona, is that smart management giving a struggling star a fresh environment? Or more evidence that United can't fix problems internally? The Garnacho sale to Chelsea, shrewd business, or selling their future? INEOS, or INEOS, talks about building sustainable success. Yet they seem just as willing to discard players as previous regimes. The question is whether this tough love approach will break the graveyard cycle or just accelerate the churn of talent through Old Trafford. And when you piece all this together, what emerges is absolutely damning. When you examine all the evidence, failed big money signings, academy graduates thriving elsewhere, systematic problems repeating endlessly, it's really hard to argue that United isn't having a destructive effect on players' careers. Above all, the most damning evidence is how quickly ex-United players look better elsewhere. Di María immediately thrives at PSG. Elanga produces numbers at Forest and Newcastle. Garner becomes a Premier League regular at Everton. The talent was always there. Something about Old Trafford was preventing it from flourishing. Consequently, United isn't just failing to improve players, they're actively making them worse. So, after everything we've uncovered, there's only one question that matters. Is Manchester United a graveyard for players? The evidence is overwhelming. From world record signings such as Pogba to homegrown heroes such as Rashford, the club has spent the last decade systematically failing to get the best out of its talent. Maybe INEOS will break the cycle with their ruthless squad building. Maybe they'll restore the standards that once made United the place every player wanted to be. But until they prove they can consistently develop players rather than destroy them, the graveyard reputation will follow them everywhere. For football's sake, we hope they figure it out, because the sport is better when United actually makes players better, not worse. But what's your take on all this? Are we being unfair to United? Or is the graveyard label completely justified? Can INEOS turn things around, or will they repeat the same mistakes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit subscribe and the bell for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.